Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with me, Venus O'Hara. An orgasmic lifestyle is about reaching a climax in all areas of life, not just in the bedroom. Here, we dive deep with expert guests on topics like nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Together, we'll explore lifestyle lessons to help you lead a life that's fulfilling, joyful, and unapologetically orgasmic. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 165 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this Book Moon episode, we discuss intimacy after bereavement. We speak with Nicky Wake, who experienced an unexpected surge in sexual desire after the devastating loss of her husband. She later discovered that this is known as widow's fire. And in this episode, she shares her journey through grief, intimacy, and healing, and she explains how it inspired her mission to help other widows rediscover pleasure and connection. I also review my diary from when I lived in Paris and what I learned from looking back at my past dreams, hopes, and relationships. And the episode ends with a meditation with affirmations for celebrating the gift of life. And this episode is sponsored by Svarcom, an award-winning pleasure product brand. And you can use my code VENUS35 for a 35% discount on anything site-wide on their website, svarcom.com. That's SVAKOM.com. And the link is also in the show notes below. I first came across today's guest while I was watching an episode of This Morning. This Morning is a UK daytime TV show, and they often feature really interesting interviews from people who have fascinating life stories, and our guest today is one of those. I'm really fascinated by This Morning in general because I would say it's my guilty pleasure, and they often cover topics that I find fascinating, sometimes a bit taboo, and quite often a bit racy, especially considering it's daytime TV. So the topic of her interview was, I craved intimacy days after my husband died. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, I've got to interview her for the podcast. Anyway, as this is a very delicate and sensitive topic, I'm going to read to you what the description of the interview was. Nicky Wake was devastated when she tragically lost her husband 6 years ago, but she was also left with an urge that she couldn't explain. Although she didn't know it at the time, Nicky was experiencing something called widow's fire, an all-consuming desire to have sex after the loss of a partner. And after struggling to come to terms with her feelings, Nicky is telling us about her mission to help other widows get intimate. Wow, so this is really fascinating. And I was intrigued by this topic because I went through something similar quite a long time ago. I was going through a death, and it wasn't a death of a partner, but let's say there was someone close to me passed. And I remember at the time I had this amazing boyfriend, and he was comforting me. And, you know, when he was being so sweet and hugging me, I just wanted him to rip my clothes off. And as I analyze it, I think it was just because I wanted to tap into the aliveness, you know, after this sadness and mourning. I wanted just to feel the blood running through my veins and remind myself that, yes, someone's died. Yes, this is a sad moment, but I am alive and I'm going to embrace this beautiful gift of life. And I do think, you know, sex and death is very, you know, connected. I actually wrote an erotic story called Eros and Thanatos to describe this encounter of my horniness after going through bereavement. And you know, and people always also say, you know, the orgasm face is la petite mort. So it's more connected than we think. And I think for me, I just wanted to tap into that aliveness because there's nothing more alive and present than an orgasm. At that moment, you're not thinking about what do I do next, or what should I want to check my phone. It's really a moment of pure connection with your body, with the moment, and even with a person as well. And that's what really I wanted to get in go deep with Nicky and just explore this concept of widow's fire a lot more. Also, I have been deeply affected by the topic of bereavement fairly recently. I lost, I think, around 8 people in a year. And some of those people were family, some were friends, some were old, some were young. So there's a whole mix of relationships, a whole mix of situations. Some were expected, some were unexpected, some were, lives that were well lived, and others were very unfair and very young. So I had this whole sense of whole experience of bereavement on many different levels quite recently. And I do think that, death is the biggest life lesson, because sometimes we get so distracted by our day-to-day, our busyness, our fears, and sometimes it does take something drastic to actually get us back into presence and back into a state of really acknowledging what is important with your life and where you want to go with it as well. And I do think, having birthdays is a similar thing, getting older. And also, moments like the New Year or Christmas, they can be very confronting, because often we are so distracted and we are filling our time with distraction, with doom scrolling, with just avoiding what is important in our lives. And I do think it's important to have a time of space and boredom and just free of distractions, where you can really reflect on what are the things that are going to make you feel aliveness and pure, like really indulge in this gift of life and really appreciate it and do those things that you've always wanted to do in a fearless way. I know for me, I have been, what I've been wanting to do for such a long time, more and more, is travel. I really want to travel more, because travel for me helps me get into that aliveness, and also the sense of not just aliveness, but possibility, where things can emerge in a way that can be really entertaining, and the unknown can be alluring, I think, when it comes to travel. It can be a bit scary as well, but I think it's so important to get out of your routine, of your normal day-to-day, the things that you do, the places you go. And I think it does provide perspective on your life as well, perspective on so many things, and you start to see what is really important. So for me recently, I wanted to share something that a big decision that I've made in my life to help me tap into those feelings that I want to experience in my life. And often I find that I feel a bit lost. I have so many different things happening, and I don't feel grounded a lot of the time. So I try to ground myself more and more, and give myself a bit of a sense of direction, going beyond the day-to-day, the to-do list, because that is pretty full. But when I zoom out and think about what's going to be important to me when I've ticked all these things, and now I've decided to actually become a qualified or a certified sexologist. And this has been something that I've been literally toying with this idea for several years, and now the opportunity kind of came into my orbit, and I grabbed it. I'm so thrilled. So last year I came across an organization called the Sexual Health Alliance, and they're from the US. And they were in Barcelona for one of their study abroad programs. So what they do is they take a group of their alumni or their sex therapists, sexologists, and they explore different cities around the world, and they get to know the sex education of that city and all the kind of the sexual culture of that place. And I was invited to meet them in Barcelona to talk about my work as a sex toy reviewer and designer. And I just felt so good being in the same room with people who have the same mission as I do, to make the world a more pleasurable place, a less shameful place. And I felt so seen, because I don't often get that opportunity, because working online is wonderful, having things like internet, Zoom, etc. But in real life, there's a whole different energy. And also I just felt so what's the word, validated. And we always say that that's kind of terrible to have external validation, but I felt so, a better word would be guided. I felt so guided being with people who understand how important this mission is, not just sharing it, but sharing its importance. Because for so many people, they see it as an add-on or something frivolous and not that important, especially when it comes to things like sex. So it's like, if it's not essential, you don't need it, kind of thing. But sexuality is the foundation of life. It's something that helps us feel alive, but also to connect with others, to connect with ourselves. And I think we're in denial of its importance as a society, anyway. As seeing it as something important. So that for me, it was very, very. It was just felt so good. I felt so guided. So I've decided to just actually start studying with them, because I'm thinking now how much that's going to guide me, ground me, and allow me to flourish in new ways. And it's going to give a lot more structure to what I am doing. And I just attended my first online summit last weekend. So every now and again, they create these online, the Sexual Health Alliance has these online summits where it's basically Saturday and Sunday all day long, and lots of experts give talks on their topic of expertise. And the overall topic of the latest one was about sexology in the media. And I myself have done a lot of media, but it was approaching it from many different angles, from traditional press to publishing books to social media. And even there was even an intimacy coordinator. So I was just looking at sexuality from many different angles in the press, and it was really fascinating. And also because I'm in Barcelona and they're in the US, I had to stay, I had to stay online until very late. And even the later talks were so interesting. I wasn't even tired. I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting. And what I found really interesting about it was especially the idea of creating my own community where I can showcase all of my courses, etc. And that's something that I've been, holding back from because of my shyness or my fear, thinking if I set this up, who's going to join? But now, thinking about the idea of death as well, just like do what you want to do and just don't be fearful and just don't care what anyone else is going to think. It's just, you don't want to be on your deathbed thinking, I wish I'd done this, So I think for me, I just want to give life my best shot. I want to reach my potential. That's my biggest goal in life is really to reach my potential and be able to say that, yeah, I did my best, at what I was trying to do. And for me personally, that, sexuality has so many different angles, facets, and perspectives. I'm really interested in conscious pleasure, conscious sexuality, and it's just fascinating. So I'm really excited about becoming a certified sexologist. It's going to give me so much more confidence, I think, and I'm excited about the opportunities that are going to come my way as a result of becoming a certified sexologist. But one challenge I have now is I have so much work, and I'm trying to find time to do the online studying. So that is quite challenging, because I'm really enthusiastic about not only doing the course but finishing it. And another thing that's wonderful about this is to be part of a community. I mean, community is such an important thing in life anyway, no matter what you are doing. Community is something that is so important, especially when it's people who see your goals. Because one thing is, family who know you from, let's say, growing up, who you are, but not always. It's nice to have people who actually understand your day to day as well, and where you're going and what your objectives are. And to have that type of support as well is really important in life. Yeah, another thing that our guest today is doing, it was part of her own mission, is that she is a niche dating entrepreneur. And this is super interesting because obviously another key part of life is, in addition to purpose, aliveness, etc., is our relationships and to connect with others. And also when we connect with others, when we have shared values, that is definitely something that can be an indicator of longevity, satisfaction, etc. But not only that, I think it's important in life just to be connected with other people who do share our values. So we'll talk about the niche dating sites that she has as well. Also, I do think that niche dating sites or apps just a better way to have more quality connections when we do dating. I know I've only used a dating app once. I used a vegan dating app, and even though it wasn't as successful, it was a nice experience. It's not something I pursued, but having a shared value such as veganism, like what are your favorite restaurants? How do you take B12? At least they had something to talk about rather than when was your last relationship. It was just a bit less awkward, but in general, yeah, that's not really what I'm doing for finding love at the moment. But anyway, I still don't have that figured out, but I am getting through it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today, and I'm really excited about sharing this interview with you today, and I hope you find it as entertaining as I did and informative. Seeing as we're talking about pleasure and aliveness and desire with Nicky Wake, why not explore a new pleasure product? I've partnered with Svarcom, an award-winning pleasure brand that offers a wide range of premium products made from body-safe materials. Whether you're looking for a wand massager, rabbit vibrator, clitoral stimulator, wearable vibrator, stroker, cock ring, or something completely different, there's something for everyone. And to make your shopping experience even more orgasmic, you can enjoy 35% off site-wide with my exclusive discount code Venus35. Simply visit svarcom.com, that's SVAKOM.com, and enter the code Venus35 at checkout and treat yourself to something that brings you pleasure and makes you feel alive. Enjoy! Now it's time for this episode's interview. We'll be speaking with Nicky Wake, and she discovered widow's fire, which is an unexpected surge in sexual desire after bereavement. And she shares how this has inspired her mission to help other widows rediscover pleasure and connection. Nicky Wake, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle podcast, where every day is a climax. How are you today?
I'm really well, and thank you for having me. A great podcast to be on. So delighted to be here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Yeah, so I do many things, but I guess probably the thing I'm here to talk about is I run some niche dating apps. I was widowed in 2020 and my life imploded. In a sort of desperate attempt to try and find joy and hope again, I started dating. Now, I'd not dated for 20 years. And when I did date 20 years prior, I actually met my husband online. So we were really early adopters of online dating. This is back in the day where you basically lied to people and said you met in a bar and things because it was like so guilt-ridden then, whereas now it's the norm. So I knew that online dating worked or had done for me previously. So I got myself online, and after a couple of years of grief, I thought it's time to put myself back out there. So I downloaded Tinder. Now, obviously, Tinder, it's like the Wild West. It's full of dick pics and ghosting and married men. And I was a widow, and I was very vulnerable, and I felt guilty. And it's very complex dating as a widower or a widow. And I thought, well, I need to date a widower. I need to date somebody who understands how I'm feeling so that I don't have to explain this on a first date. It's nothing like a passion killer of having to go, yeah, my husband died. So I thought, well, there must be a dating app for widows and widowers. And I looked on the App Store and I looked on the Google Play Store, and there wasn't. I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I also run a very successful events business. We run big award shows all over the world. And I'm an entrepreneur, so I could smell an opportunity. So I went out and I raised 60K in funding, which naively I thought that was all you needed to launch an app. And so Chapter 2 Dating.app, which was my first app, was born in September 2022. And we had a great sort of first 6 months of that. I hit the headlines everywhere. So I talk very open and candidly about my experience of being widowed and all aspects of dating as a widow, and the press loved it. So I've been in every woman's magazine in the UK. I've been on TV, on radio. I did ITV This Morning a few weeks ago. So yeah, I do a lot of media and PR. So we hit the headlines and we got loads of members and everything was going really well. And I built this app to solve my problem of trying to date a widower. And then I realized after dating a few people, I actually wasn't ready for a relationship at all. That what I was experiencing, this urge and this drive that I was experiencing was something called widow's fire. Now, widow's fire is a recognized phenomenon that happens to everybody who's grieving. Well, not everybody gets it, but the majority of, fairly young, healthy people will, you basically have an unbelievable urge and ache and desire for sex. So you feel horny when you're grieving because what your body's trying to do is make sense of the loss. I mean, if you think about it, I shared my bed with my husband for 20
Mm.
years, right? And I spent 20 years teaching him how to make love to this body. And he got quite good at it in the end. And then all of a sudden that's snatched from you. And that 20 years of intimacy and understanding. And we had a kind of a DS relationship and King, and trying to replicate that from start to scratch with someone else is incredibly hard. And I wasn't in the emotional place to have a proper relationship. So I kept dating people and screwing it up. And after a while, I recognized what I was feeling was widow's fire. And what I wanted was a safe space to have no strings attached fun with someone who understood. So I launched our naughty sister app called widowsfire.dating. And we launched that in July 2023. And then I went on through my ongoing battles with grief. I was struggling with alcohol. And then I got sober. I checked into rehab in November 2024. And I realized that sober people have the same problems as widowed people. Dating is a challenge as a sober person because you have to basically out yourself as an alcoholic on the first date. Because every date surrounds bars and restaurants, and and you have to say, I'm not drinking. Why? And so I realized that sober people needed an app. So I launched an app called soberlove.app. So we now have 3 apps on our platform.
Oh, wow. So you got chapter 2, Widow's
Chapter two,
Fire.
Chapter 2, dating.app, widowsfire.dating, and soberlove.app. And we've got 25,000 users across the 3 platforms. And
Wow.
we're in 4 countries. So we're in the UK, the US, Canada, and Australia.
Wow. So it's chapter 2, like for anyone who's, let's say, having a second attempt at love, let's say post
Yeah,
divorce or
yeah.
something
So
like that.
it's your
Okay.
second chapter, but not divorce. It's only
Uh,
for widows and widowers.
oh,
And we
okay.
ask, because we believe that widows and widowers are uniquely placed to understand each other because you've
Mm.
been through that trauma. I mean, I met my partner, Dan, who I've been with for 9 months now. I actually met him on Widow's Fire. We were both looking for,
Wow, your own app.
yeah, yeah, on my
Is that
own
on your
app.
chap? Is that on your profile?
Yeah, well,
I'm the
so
founder.
yeah, so I wasn't, and he had no idea who I was when he started talking to me. But yeah, but I met him on Widow's Fire because
Mm.
we both thought we were just looking for a bit of fun, and we did have
Mm.
3 or 4 very fiery dates, shall we say? And after I think date 5, he said to me, I think this might actually be a chapter 2, not a Widow's Fire. So yeah, and he's now an investor in chapter 2. So in the group. So yes, I very much have my own success story, which is very exciting. But yeah, I mean, with chapter 2, we've had 4 marriages. There's even been a chapter 2 baby. Now, I
Oh,
thought as
wow.
widows and widowers, we were way beyond baby making, right? Because I personally am.
Mm.
Um, but we had some younger members who were in their late 30s who went on to conceive and have given birth to a beautiful little baby boy. So
Wow.
yeah, what I've done, I hope, is take my pain and turn it into purpose. That was my way of coping with loss and grief. And
Mm.
I talk very openly about my experiences as dating as a widow because I do think it's a very unique thing. So we ask everybody who signs up to chapter 2 to prove their widowed status. So they can do that by either sending a death certificate or a link to an obituary or a memorialized Facebook page or whatever. So
Wow.
so yeah, what we want to do is create a safe space for people to explore dating again or to have no strings intimacy fun, but with
Mm.
someone else who understands.
Yeah,
If
that's a
you're if
safety
you're
container is so important.
yeah, I mean, if
Mm.
you think about it, a lot of my audience are kind of over 50s, etc. And they don't want to be going on apps like Field or
Mm.
Tinder because it's just not a safe space for them to be hanging out. And also they won't meet other people of a similar age or like, I mean, I'm on field because, you know, I practice ethical non-monogamy, and you know, I'm the oldest woman on field in Manchester. So,
Wow.
you know, it's certainly a younger generation approach. So Widows Fire gives widows and widowers a safe space to explore their own sexuality and you know, deal with their widow's fire in a sort of safe and supportive environment.
Wow. So how did you find out about the term widow's fire?
Well, I just knew that something was driving me insane, and
So you just started asking
I
Google
had
and
a
then
major itch to scratch, and yeah, no, I mean it's a phrase that's used a lot in widow
ah,
support groups. So
oh
the
wow.
beauty of chapter 2 is a phrase that's used in widow support groups without before chapter 2 existed. So people would say, have you found a chapter 2, or are you thinking about a chapter 2? And you know, so it was a common phrase, and widow's fire is exactly the same. So if you go on any Facebook forum or Reddit page or any of those things, widow's fire is a recognized medical phenomenon and it's talked about. So it sort of needs no explaining to widows and widowers. Anyone who's not been widowed probably doesn't understand those phrases, but it's kind of almost like an emotional shorthand. So that's one of the things that makes it really clever.
Well, I remember years ago I went through a bereavement, not a partner, but it was someone who was old and I was related to, and I remember at the time just feeling so horny. I actually wrote a story about it called Eros and Thanatos. It's an erotic story, and I think it was just about wanting to feel that aliveness because all this
Yeah.
grief and just death, and you just want to like.
Well,
And I'm thinking,
you're
yeah,
chasing a dopamine hit to deal with the grief.
mm,
But it does, I think being widowed makes you question everything about life. So we did a
mm,
really interesting survey with our members, and we found that I think 42% of widows and widowers had questioned their own sexuality
mm,
after being widowed. So I know that I'm bisexual, but obviously when I was with my husband, I was monogamous with my husband. So that was a whole part of my sexuality I hadn't dabbled with for 20 years. So instantly, not instantly, but you know, on being widowed, it gave me an opportunity to explore that side of my makeup again. And yeah, I think as widows, we literally live for the moment because we know that life can and does change in a heartbeat. And and that you have to literally, you know, suck the joy out of every day. I mean, I remember joking with my husband because he knew that I was bisexual, that I would give him a threesome for his 60th birthday, you know, which is what every straight man dreams of, isn't it? The reality is very different. But and he never made it to 60.
oh
So,
wow,
you know, that really resonated with me in a kind of like, why would I not? And that's, you know, being widowed has shaped the way I view and act in relationships in the sense that, you know, I'm in a very strong partnership, but we are ethically non-monogamous because he's a widower and he lost his wife. So he understands the same mindset as I do. And that, you know, for us, kind of sex begins at 50, not ends there. So,
yeah.
you know, it's yeah, it's it's an interesting experience. I wouldn't recommend being widowed to anybody, but it's an interesting experience to make you reevaluate and live your life in a very different manner.
Yeah, I do think that, death is the biggest life lesson, isn't it?
And it's the one thing none of us talk about. It's crazy,
Yeah.
absolutely crazy.
I think we fill our time with distractions. There's only those moments where you realize what's important when you have to stop, like illness or death or
Hmm.
something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. And also I think dating's really complicated. I mean, I've only done dating apps once because I've been well known locally here in Barcelona. I used to work on local radio, and
Right.
so I've done a lot of press here, and also having 1,000 sex lives. Who's going to be okay with that? I have my own like baggage, like silicone baggage. But I did try a niche dating app once, a vegan dating app.
Oh,
But then
right.
but then when you find so we had something to talk about, about having a juice, and then what's your favorite vegan restaurant. So at least there was something to kind of get over
Hmm.
there. Otherwise it's just too random,
Hmm.
it's dating. But it's just it's very awkward, isn't it, having on general going on dates if you go on Tinder or something like that, where it can be quite random. But I guess if you've got some kind of common
There's
ground.
some, yeah, some common
Mm,
ground, but you know, when
mm,
there's something that happens with widows and widowers when we meet, we go from 1 to 100 in friendship terms. I mean, not even
mm.
conceptually, very quickly, because there's so much understood and so much shared life experience. You know, it it, it doesn't matter if, you know, like my partner lost his wife to alcoholism. You know, I lost my husband to a heart attack, and but it's just the experience of being widowed, your life instantly pivots overnight. So one plan that you thought you had has changed completely, and you really have to reassess and reevaluate everything. But also, it's, things like we've both parented grieving children. And, so that's another shared experience. I genuinely believe widows and widowers are a better place to date each other than anyone else. And I'm
Mm.
living proof that it can and it does work.
Yeah, so even if it doesn't work out in terms of a sexual attraction, you still got a friend, you get a friend out of it at least.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then the strength of the widow community is amazing. I only got through what I've got through and came out to the side because of the friends I've made on my widow journey. So some of my best friends now are widows, because people who aren't widowed struggle to understand the complexities of dealing with me
Mm.
post Andy loss. So we used to hang out with couples, and now I'm the odd one out. So
Wow.
you get dropped from friendship groups organically over time. Um, People just don't know where to place you anymore.
Yeah, I
On
think people don't know how to talk about it,
Yeah,
I
of course.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody, everyone's scared to mention his name, whereas all you want to do is talk about him. So yeah.
Wow.
But I think the fact that we've now got over 25,000 members worldwide shows that there is. I mean, sadly, there are 3.12 million widows in the UK. There are 15 million widows and widowers in the US. So it's
Mm.
it's a big section of the market. At the end of the day, as a human being, you're likely to either be widowed or die, because
Mhm.
everybody's going unless you both get killed on the same day in a road accident or something horrifically tragic like that, you know you will either be widowed or you will die.
Do you think there's any kind of it's probably difficult to generalize, but do you think there's any time that's too soon or anything that you
No,
recommend
I
or
mean, I genuinely think it's entirely up to you. Nobody should or
mm,
could judge. Um, I think, I mean, I know, because obviously we ask people when they're widowed when they join, so that we can see that they're genuine widows and verify that information. And people join us, very often people join us on Widows Fire within days of being widowed. And don't forget,
wow.
quite a lot of those people have known. So in something like terminal illness like cancer, you know that your partner's going to die.
Mm,
You have 12, 18 months, 2 years, sometimes even longer, to having processed that and talk about it with them even. And
yeah.
so, you find in those kind of cases that people do move forward. As widows, we never move on, we move forward. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, is by moving forward, you're not disrespecting what happened and what's gone before. You're finding a new way of living because your life has completely changed. And so yeah, some people move on move forward in days, and other people, it'll take them 5 years to even process the idea of dating again. And some people will never date again. Some people
Mm,
think that's it, I'm done. And it's not for anybody who's not walked in those shoes to make judgments, I don't think. I mean, we found statistically, we've done quite a lot of research with our database, that men typically start dating again within 3 to 6 months, whereas
wow.
women will be at least 1 to 2 years on the whole. But that's not always the case, but that seems to be how it is. Men statistically don't seem as well equipped to deal with life on their own as, say, women generally
Mm,
appear to be. So yeah. But no, it's when it feels right for you, and it's not for anyone else to judge.
wow. Wow. So sad is to think about that, how just, spending a life with someone, especially I think about the bed as well, like you're used to
Every
sleeping a certain way and then
Yeah, I still
mm,
sleep on, my side of the bed, not Andy's. And yeah,
wow.
it changes everything. And I never
Mm,
Andy was quite young, he was 52.
wow.
I never saw that one coming. And you know, yeah,
Mm.
it's a huge wake-up call in life, and it does make you live your life differently.
Definitely, I can imagine. So tell us about, how do you create the vetting process for? Because I mean, I think one thing that turns me off dating out, because I'm kind of like, I have the fire, but without like, I'm sort of, sometimes I don't really know what to do with it when you have
Mm.
this huge sexual energy and desire, and then just going on a dating app. Like a lot of my friends are on Hinge and Tinder and Field, and it doesn't feel safe to me because safety is so, so, so important.
It is. I mean, safety is
Yeah.
massive, and we do screen every applicant. So every single person who applies for widows for chapter two, we insist that they provide a death certificate or a link to an obituary or a memorialized Facebook post. They also send us the name of their late partner so we can do additional research if we need to.
Mm.
And we're just in the process of installing facial recognition software so
Oh,
that
wow.
people get, when they sign up, they have to capture a selfie, and then we manually check that that looks vaguely like their profile picture, because obviously people have filters and things, and
Mm.
we all like to use our best photo, don't we? So,
Mm.
we then manually check and verify every single person who joins the app to avoid,
Mm.
exactly that kind of thing. Because I'm very conscious that our audience are vulnerable. A lot of
Yeah.
them won't have dated for 20 years. They won't know what they're doing. They
Mm.
they aren't they're slightly older, so they're not used to fraud and things like that. And
Yeah, yeah.
we get targeted by scammers all the time. I would say I reject 75% of the applications that come in daily to chapter two.
Mm.
And within that, there will be some, people who work in oil rigs in the Middle East or wherever
Yeah.
that are actually genuine widows, but I can't take that risk, So I know how to spot a scammer. And we do everything we can, and we ask our community to self-police. So if someone is asking you for bank details or a date of birth or to send an Amazon voucher or whatever it is that they ask, and it doesn't feel right, then to report it to us. And so we take safety very seriously.
Wow. And so everything's kind of behind a paywall, so no one can just
Yeah.
access it just
Yeah,
from
yeah,
downloading
yeah,
the app.
yeah. Well, anyone can join for free, but you can't send a message unless it's behind a paywall. So we have to
Okay.
provide your credit card, which to some degree keeps it safe, obviously.
Because I think also with the case of widows, widowers, that the community and the extended family, there's a lot of like fear of the judgment of those people. Like
Yes, yeah,
when,
there is
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I'm very lucky in the fact that my mother-in-law is very understanding. I mean, the irony of having a mother-in-law and no husband will never escape me. Um,
Mm.
and I could kill him for leaving me with that particular problem to deal with. But anyway.
Wow.
It's interesting how people react. There's no way to get it right, because if you move quickly, people be like, "Oh, you moved a bit soon." But if you haven't dated within 2 years, it's like, "Well, that's really time you got to put yourself back out there." There's no right or wrong time, and there's a lot of judgment around widows dating again, and there shouldn't be. I know
Mm.
that Andy would have wanted me to find my,
Mm.
second chapter. And I think he'd approve of who I'm dating. So,
Okay.
I think we all deserve joy and hope, and particularly if you've been through the darkest and grimmest of times, which losing your life partner, the father
Mm.
of your children, is.
We'll get back to the conversation in just a moment, but seeing as we're talking about pleasure and aliveness, I thought this would be the perfect time to mention one of my favourite pleasure brands. This episode is sponsored by Svarcom, an award-winning sexual wellness brand that creates beautifully designed, body-safe toys to help you explore pleasure, whether you're playing solo or with a partner. Their collection includes everything from clitoral stimulators and wand massagers to rabbits, wearable vibrators, strokers, cock rings, and much more. And if you'd like to discover something new, you can enjoy 35% off site-wide at svarcom.com. That's SVAKOM.com with my exclusive code Venus35. The link is also in the show notes below. Now, let's get back to the conversation with Nicky. Tell us about sober dating. I'm a sober. I've been sober for
How
over
are
10
you?
years. Woo! Yeah, cheers to
Yeah, no,
you.
and sobriety is the best thing I ever did. And
Wow.
I mean, I was a very highly functioning alcoholic, so I dread to think how much richer I could have been if I'd not been hit for half of my life. But yeah, so I mean, I genuinely believe I wouldn't have ended up alcoholic had I not been widowed. So that was the catalyst for me.
Oh
Was
wow. So you were just were you an alcoholic before that or not? Or
Yeah, no, no, not before Andy fell ill. So
mm,
no, I was a heavy drinker. Yeah,
mm,
we'd regularly do a couple of bottles of red wine on a Sunday from lunch onwards, kind of
It's just
thing,
so normalized, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's just so
exactly.
normalized.
And particularly, in the UK, there's alcohol so readily available. And it's not quite, you get questioned if you don't drink here rather than if you do.
Mm.
And so I was a heavy drinker and I was a party girl. I grew up in the Hacienda
Oh yeah,
literally, my first job was a podium dancer for the Hacienda, and you don't do that sober in more ways than one. So I was undoubtedly a party girl. So I wasn't a huge I wasn't a huge alcoholic before this happened. But when Andy fell ill, Andy had a heart attack, which resulted in a catastrophic brain injury. So I did CPR and kept him alive for 45 minutes till the ambulance crew arrived. And the minute the ambulance crew arrived, the first thing I did was go to the wine rack and downed a bottle of wine. And from that moment, survival emotionally to me was hardwired to
yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah.
And and Andy was put in a coma in intensive care for 3 weeks while they were hoping that he was going to be okay when they brought him out of it. And actually, he'd suffered a catastrophic brain injury. So that left him completely and utterly profoundly disabled in a nursing home, needing 24/7 care. So he was alive, technically, but
Mm.
the man I'd married was not there. So I had 3 years of anticipatory grief. And that was 3 horrid years of not knowing how. I knew it was going to end badly, but I just didn't know when. And then COVID hit the headlines, and that was the beginning of our end. He caught COVID. The nursing home was closed down, and he caught COVID while he was in the nursing home, and so I never got to say goodbye. And so yeah, I drank to numb the pain, and I drank to keep functioning. And I was running a events business employing 20 people, and then COVID hit, obviously. And I still have the events business to this day. We pivoted to virtual events and we got through it, but we've only just finished paying the loan off that we took to get through it. My crutch in life was alcohol, and I was a very good alcoholic. Like no one knew, nobody. I mean, I think my son. So I went into rehab on my son's 17th birthday. And I said to him, I'm gonna go into rehab today. And he said, that's the best birthday present you can give me. And
Wow.
I've not drunk since. That's nearly 18 months ago. So and I will never drink again. My life is immeasurably better as a
Mm.
result of not drinking. I actually make decent life choices and can hold down a relationship now. Who knew?
Mm.
So yeah, and obviously sober love as an app, I genuinely believe there's a need for, because I don't know how you feel, but I don't want to date anyone who drinks heavily.
No, no, no.
I don't want anyone for which going to the pub is an essential part of our social life. I'm very comfortable around people drinking. I still work in the events industry with my events business, and we do big gala dinners, every other week. I'm in a posh frock giving an award out to somebody. And that's very embedded with alcohol.
Mm.
But I'm fine around it. And I know that for me it's not a choice. I can't have one drink. I know that. So, I did immense damage to my health during that sort of 5 years of alcoholism that happened. Yeah, I mean, you can't change what's happened, and I know why it
Mm.
happened, but I know that, one glass of red wine, I could be back down that rocky road. So
Yeah.
yeah, so sober love was a natural extension for me. Is to what I've tried to do continually is turn my pain into purpose and
Yeah.
try and do something very positive out of an incredibly negative and challenging situation. And I hope, and I think I'm doing it.
Yeah, definitely. So I found when I gave up alcohol, it was the first moment, because I had two like big party friends here in Barcelona who left at the same time. They were my drinking friends.
Mm,
So I was very upset, but I thought now it's time to change my life. So I kind of changed my life to a more daytime socializing life. And I was going vegan, so my tolerance was going right down. I was getting drunk from one glass of wine and stuff. I just thought, let's just do sobriety. I also had to lose some weight for some photo shoot, and this shoot getting delayed all the time. So over that time, I thought I was going to get a big bottle of wine up when it was done, but I was like, I actually just got used to sobriety and clarity. I loved saying I don't drink. I just thought it felt powerful. But I
yeah.
remember the first few months, it was like temptation, but then it's rejection.
Mm,
I mean, I was in situations where I was tempted, but then it got to the point where you're smelling it, you're hearing the slurred speech and the repetition. You're like, oh my God, was this me? The music's terrible. You don't realize how
Mhm.
bad the music is sometimes when you go out. And now I can be in all of those spaces and just not care. And I just feel really, and also I've just created a life that I love, that I don't need that Friday kind of wind
Yeah,
down, you know?
absolutely. It's liberating, and you use the word clarity, and I think that's really important. That clear
Mm,
head in the mornings, and you make better decisions. It, it, every aspect life is improved by not drinking. I mean, I'm Cali sober, so I do occasionally let my hair down from sort of in that way, but
mm,
I don't. I will never drink again, and for
mm.
me, it's yeah, I mean, my poor son, must have been so worried. He lost his dad, and he could have.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah. I had a couple of rock bottom moments and a big wake up call, and knew I needed to do it, and I needed professional help to do it. I couldn't just stop like you did. So
Mm.
uh, yeah, but best decision I ever made was going to rehab.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't, I didn't think I was stopping. It was just a temporary decision that ended up being a permanent one. So that happens sometimes with people who do, dry January or sober
Yeah.
October, that they just don't realize it was going to be, you kind of get used to it. And
Mm.
then you're like, oh, actually, this is quite good. I interviewed Janie Lee Grace for this podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
she's all about sobriety as well. And she
Yeah,
talks
yeah.
about, the gray area drinking. 'Cause not everyone is an alcoholic. It's also just a lot of drinking is just unhealthy. Most of it
Mhm.
is,
Yeah,
in the UK
absolutely.
especially. Yeah. So tell us about sober love then.
So Sober Love is great. We're now nearly a year old.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, just a year old. Yeah, we launched end of March last year, 2025. And we've got, I think, 4,000 members now on that, and that's in the UK and the US, and it's
Mm.
growing steadily on a kind of
Okay.
ongoing basis. So yeah, I mean, I've done the PR rounds again with my sobriety story and
Mm.
shared that. And yeah, it's there are in the US there's a dating app called Lucid, which is quite well known, but certainly in the UK there isn't a huge amount of competition, and so over time, we hope to grow that arm of the business, but it all sits under the umbrella that is Chapter 2 Dating
Mm.
Limited, and yeah, we've big plans for the future.
Amazing. So from a business perspective, how do you cope with working on different things? Do you have any strategies?
Yeah, I multitask like a demon, and I've got an amazing PA. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I'm lucky with the events business. That's 20 years old now, and
Mm.
don't tell my staff this, but it's sort of runs itself. But yeah, no, we've got a really good senior team there. Although out of my senior team of five, four of them are pregnant and having babies at the moment. So that's I'm having to actually do a bit more work than I normally do.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's that to all intents and purposes, is a very well-oiled machine, and needs little involvement from me. I just go in once a week and cause chaos.
Mm.
And then the dating apps is a labor of love. I work 24/7. I'm an
A
workaholic.
workaholic. Yeah.
I replaced alcoholism with work ethic and attitude. I've always worked hard, but I love what I do. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is work. Is sat talking to you. It's great.
Yeah.
I love doing the media and the PR and stuff. So, um, I've got people who do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of tech and development, and I've got a CMO who helps with the marketing and things. So yeah, I get to go out and be the face of the brand and enjoy it. And the biggest challenge has been raising investment. We're currently working on a round at the moment, um, because in America, the opportunity is huge. We've not done any press and PR in America yet. So I'm hoping to get a few American investors on board who are widows to help front the brand in America. So yeah, there's lots of exciting things planned.
Wow. Wow. There's a lot happening there. So
Mhm.
a couple of questions I ask all of my guests. Do you read? Are you a reader?
Yeah, I'm currently reading and loving Heated Rivalry
Oh
series. The
wow.
gay ice hockey. Oh, I never knew that. So as a kind of a person, I never thought porn was very erotic. But I watched Heated Rivalry with my gay son. And yeah, it was a awkward moment for both of us, I think, when we were both incredibly turned on by that. So I've bought the books and I'm reading those. So I do read, but I only read when I'm on holiday or when I'm on a cruise. I
Mm.
do a lot of cruise. I quite often work from a cruise ship, so I am a workaholic. But I
Mhm.
tend to, my office will be a cruise ship for 3 or 4 days a month at least. I'm off to Caribbean from Miami later this month, and so yeah, then I read, and I do read the odd kind of business book and stuff. Like I love Mel Robbins and
Mm.
so a little bit, but probably not as much as I like. But my nightly go-to is literotica for just a bit of kind of filth of bedtime, self-indulgent moments, shall we say. So yeah, I end most days with a bit of literotica if I'm not with my partner.
So what is the book that changed your life? Do you have is any book that you've read in your life that was like, wow, this has really changed my perspective on life?
Yeah, so one of my desert island books, if you want to call it that, is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue,
Mm.
which is there's two key characters in it, Addie and Luke. Luke is the devil, and Addie sells her soul to him for eternal life. And me and my partner have a DS relationship, and our scene names are based on Addie and Luke. So yeah, so that's a very important book to me. That means a lot, actually, that book. So that's yeah, I would say. And then probably, Nancy Friday's Secret
Mm.
Garden. I think women of my age all grew up reading that, didn't they? So that certainly is a pivotal book.
What about a phrase or affirmation that you live by?
Um, Work hard and be nice to people. That's
Okay.
that's the phrase. I've got a poster in my work office, in for the events company, and that's our motto, is work hard and be nice to people.
Mm.
And I think if you can live by that tenet, it's not a bad one.
Definitely. And also, when you talk about award ceremonies, I think for me, sometimes when I had some big collaboration or some email with a proposal that was exciting, my first idea was always get a bottle of wine.
Hmm.
So, to celebrate. And then I thought, if I want to get really famous, though, I mean, I need to find some new ways because I want to have lots of celebrations, something more sustainable. How do you celebrate then now? How do you celebrate?
How do I celebrate? I think probably good meal, good food.
Mm.
I kind of, yeah, and to travel. So, I book myself a cruise when
Mm.
if I choose a sort of major milestone, it will be that. And yeah, so try and spend money that I would spend on alcohol on experiences.
Mm.
Because actually, you know, some of the best money I've spent in the last 10 years, since a life-defining event, has been on travel and,
Mm.
new experiences. I took my son to every Disneyland in the world in one year,
Oh,
because we
wow.
needed to make new and happy memories together. And so yeah, I think for me, yeah, the time that you'd spend drinking and the money that you'd spend drinking is to throw that into new experiences.
Wow. So, what do you drink now? What's your favorite drink when you go out?
I am practically sponsored by Lucky Saint, which is
What is that?
it's a alcohol-free beer that's brewed
Okay.
here in the UK, and it's really good. Like, you
Uh,
wouldn't know it wasn't alcoholic, and so yeah, that's kind of mine. And then in the day, I don't do coffee or tea, so lots of water and lots of Diet Coke, and the occasional Red Bull when I need a little pick me up, get
I
me
love
through.
kombucha. Do you like kombucha?
No, I'm not. I'm
I
not a huge
don't.
fan, I'll be honest, but
Mm. I feel a
yeah.
bit drunk having that because it's got like what 0.5%. So I got
Yeah, well,
tiny.
that is 0.5% as
I was like,
well. So,
ooh.
and anything with 0.5 is tastes better than 0.0 is kind of
Okay.
the general. But yeah, that's, I mean, you'd have to, you physically can't get drunk on that, even if you drank 10, because
Mm.
go to the loo before, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, but it certainly worked for me. My biggest challenge has been, my poison of choice, quite literally, was red wine, and trying to find good
Alcohol
non-alcoholic
free.
red
Yeah.
wine is a challenge. Good Prosecco is quite easy to find, but yeah,
Mm.
it's yeah. But I mean, the choices are so much better than they once were. It's very easy now to proactively not drink, just by swapping one or two drinks out. Even, for me, not everybody has to go completely sober. I think it's about reevaluating your relationship with alcohol is as important as being completely sober. Because if you drink in a normal capacity, a glass of wine or two a week isn't going to do you any major harm.
Mm.
Um, but there are some of us who just are genetically um disposed to not be able to drink normally. And yeah, I kind of, if I'm doing something, I do it to excess, be that work or pleasure.
Yeah. Well, pleasure is a better choice for sure.
Yes, indeed.
Any other niches that you might be interested in exploring in the future?
Yeah, in terms of dating
Or
apps.
you've seen gaps, any interesting gaps that
Yes,
you've
yeah. So,
seen?
well, I'm working on a concept for a swinging kink site at the moment. So, I'm kind of working on that as an idea.
Like a safer
Uh,
field or something?
yes, yeah. Oh, field for old people, basically.
Okay.
So yeah, so yeah, but more kind of a cross between field and vet. I think so. So
Mm.
yeah, you know, the modern, well, the swinging site that majority of people use to find new partners is Fab Swingers, which is bloody awful as a site. So so yeah, trying to create a cool alternative to that, which Field is, but if you're over 40, there's not that much to be found on Field unless you like having sex with really young people, which is inappropriate. So,
Mm.
and there's nothing like making you feel old, is there, than, chatting to a 30-year-old. So, yeah, so that's an area I'm looking at, and looking at putting together a club night based around that, and then turning that into an app. And then the other area I was thinking of doing is something on for single parents, because I know
Oh, that's a good
the
one.
dating
Yeah.
as a single parent are obviously very similar to that of a widow. And I like to create authentic brand driven apps that are based on my real life experience. And, I can talk very happily about the swinging kink scene because that's something I've been part of for some time now. And likewise, I can about being a solo parent and dating as a solo parent. So those are areas that I will look at. But at the moment, the big ambition is to throw the majority of my energy and effort into growing chapter 2. So finishing this investment round and then going huge in America. I plan to go out for most of next year in America.
Wow.
There's areas like the villages in Florida where there's one area there that there's like 95,000 over 55s who live there. So that's a huge
Mm.
opportunity for chapter 2. So I fully intend to be running the villages by the time I finish.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Or at least
Amazing.
be on the residents committee. So yeah, there's a huge amount of opportunity with the brands that we've got. I'm a typical entrepreneur, which is like shiny new thing. Let's go and play with that for a bit. And my non-exec director has to keep reining me back in and going, no, focus on what you've built and make that profitable. So that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Do you get any inspiration from the different types of dating shows that are on? Because there's
Oh
just so
yeah,
many
no,
interesting ones.
I absolutely, and my guilty pleasure at the moment is Maths Australia. So
Which
yeah,
ones?
Maths, Married at First Sight.
Okay.
Yeah, Married at First Sight Australia is great. I highly recommend it if you just want to lose your brain for 3 hours. Um, and then I'm currently watching Open House, which I love. So that's about people opening their relationships. So they go to a countryside retreat, and there's lots of other couples who swing in that
Oh,
environment,
wow.
and that's really interesting and fascinating. So yeah, I love dating and romance shows, anything like that. I
Naked
have.
Attraction.
Yeah, exactly. Anything like that. I like all that sort of
Mm.
stuff. So yeah,
I just lost my some brain cells watching Age of Attraction.
oh right, I've not seen that
It's
one.
the kind of age gaps. So
Oh,
it's really
okay.
interesting. It's lots of judgment or double standards. Like I'm divorced with kids, but I would never be with another person who's divorced with kids. I need a
Yeah.
20-year-old, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Love is Blind, which was amazing, the
Yeah.
British version of that. So it's
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
interesting to see how kind of what works, like Love is Blind or Naked Attraction, you know?
Yeah.
No middle ground.
No,
Mm,
indeed. But
mm,
yeah, no, it's always entertaining viewing, isn't it? And I
mm.
kind of class that as research, sort of. So
Yeah. So where can people find you?
so they can find me. Well, my personal website is nickywake.com. And then obviously my brand sites are chapter2dating.app, widowsfire.dating, and soberlove.app. Or if you want me in my events capacity, my company is don'tpanicprojects.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today on the Orgasmic Lifestyle
No
podcast. It's
problem.
been a real
Thanks for having
pleasure.
me. Oh, and I'm on Instagram as Nicky Wake Widow, so you can find me there as well. But yeah, no, feel free to follow or message me directly. All of my members know that they literally have my email address and can talk to me directly. So it's not like dealing with Tinder or
Mm,
Bumble or one of those. So yeah,
amazing.
no, it's been great to chat. Honestly, I've loved our chat. It's been really fun.
Well, thank you. Seeing as the topic is sex and death, I think today's book, the book I'm reading now, is definitely aligned with that. I've been very nostalgic, taking a big look at my own life, my dreams, my hopes, and my direction. And so the book I'm reading now is actually my diary from when I lived in Paris as a student. And it's actually, it's been a big trip down memory lane. You may remember that I actually went to Paris recently to the Skirt Club Sex Magic Retreat. Skirt Club is an online community of bisexual, bi-curious women, and I interviewed the founder, Genevieve Lejeune. I interviewed her a few months ago, and I was so thrilled to be invited to the Sex Magic retreat. And also, I just wanted to any excuse to get to Paris is is always good with me, because Paris was such an important part of my life, and this whole nostalgic trip. All the nostalgia started when I actually went to London the week before, and when I arrived in Luton Airport, I saw the perfume that I used to wear when I was in Paris, which was Cheruti 1881. I don't really wear perfumes now because I'm a bit more concerned about, the ingredients, etc. But anyway, Cheruti 1881 was my signature scent, and I found it on special offer in Luton. I thought, I had a bit of a spray, and I was like, wow, I was transported back to Paris, and I actually bought it. But I could not imagine how nostalgic this whole couple of weeks would become. And so I went back to Paris, and I stayed in the area where I used to live, which is called Le Marais, and it's one of the best areas. I used to live next to a square called Place des Vosges, and it's such a beautiful place. And I have so many memories there. I went past my own flat. And Paris for me is not just about some memories from the past. It really was a portal for me. And I went there as a student to study French, do an internship, and my objective was to maybe seduce a French guy or something, or have a French boyfriend. But what I came away with was so much more. So it was the first time in my life where I lived abroad. I exceeded my expectations. I exceeded my own vision of what I was capable of. For example, I ended up getting Latin fever. I had a Colombian boyfriend. I did my very first long haul trip to 2 trips. Actually, I went to Japan and Colombia, and it was really amazing to be on the plane doing your first, long haul trip, because that's the first time I had, the individual screen at my seat with the map with the little plane. It was like real geography, not just looking at something on a page in a book, but actually living it, flying above lands that you didn't even know the name of. It was absolutely amazing, and it opened up my mind to this aliveness that is that you get from travel in general, that perspective and possibility, and also just seeing that I had a certain set of expectations or desires, and they were all exceeded by circumstance as well. And I was open to those things. And sometimes I feel like I have kind of closed in on my life with lots of routines, etc., and small thinking. So it was really nice to actually connect with my younger self and sit in Place des Vosges and remember, how much I exceeded my own vision of what I thought was possible for me. And I really wanted to tap into that energy again and think about, what do I want from these next chapters in my life? So when I came back to Barcelona, I was feeling very, very nostalgic, and I needed a few days just to kind of be alone with myself and just process and decompress and just think. I didn't have that much time to think because I had loads of work to do, which is taking me out of that bigger possibility or vision. So what I did instead was I actually grabbed my diary from back then, which I've carried around with me, all the apartments that I've lived in. And it's a really nice diary, actually. It's called a travel notebook. And one of my friends gave it to me before I went to live in Paris. And it's a really nice book. And at the top of each page, you write the date and the place you're in. And then every few pages, there is a picture of a painting that depicts some travel, like in classical painting, like big trunks or ships on the ocean, etc. It's a very beautiful book. So I actually went through this book over the last few days, and it covers 2 years of my life. And I just was, sometimes when you go back and you read something like, oh my God, I didn't realize I've been feeling that way for so long. That's why I think journaling is so important, to take stock of not just the happenings in your life, but how you're feeling about them. Because you can really track how often you've been, complaining about something, desiring something, and it can really get you to take action, really. And that was it was very confronting for me, especially when I was reflecting on the relationship that I had at the time, and just seeing that some patterns are still, that were kind of unhealthy back then, and I still have these patterns today. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to change some things. So at the time I was seeing this guy who was quite threatened by my life in Paris. And, at first he seemed, supportive, but then it just became quite unsupportive, really. And also threatened by my new life, the new possibilities, or not being a part of it. And I remember he was actually putting down the things that were important to me, like the work I was doing, the friends I had. And I've had, similar situations lately with people who've just been really quite unsupportive of the things that are important to me, and that is such a red flag. But I've had this terrible pattern of actually seeing the potential in people and just thinking, oh, they didn't mean it, or remembering something that they did well, and then just amplifying that and kind of trying to diminish the red flag, or at least reduce its importance, or so that's been really, really, really confronting for me. And also when I was in Paris, I did this sharing circle with some very powerful women who are working in my space as well, and it seems to be a kind of common pain point that it is difficult to meet people when you're in the dating, when you are a sexpert. I think, people can think, oh, it's cool, it's worthwhile or whatever, but then do I really want to be involved with that? And I find sometimes that, to find the people who are not threatened by my expansiveness, that's been quite difficult for me. I'm just wondering, a little bit of a side note, do I need a submissive man instead who's actually turned on by a strong woman who wants to support her? Not meaning that, I don't know. I don't know. That's something I've been thinking about. Not someone who's trying to contain me and control me. That's just like not cool. But I've had that pattern in my life, unfortunately, and I was able to see it in these pages, and it was so confronting. Another thing that confronted me was my desire for travel, and I haven't traveled as much as I would have liked. And I think with everything, you have to think about what's the why behind the desire. And my why for wanting to travel is tapping into aliveness, perspective, and possibility. And I just love how not only the things that I experienced during travel, but also how I see myself and how I see my life, rather than just being, just carried away by the day-to-day stuff. I think you do need to kind of take stock of your life. And I also think travel gives you great perspective on what is important in your life. Just like we talked earlier about the death or something tragic happening. You don't need to have something tragic to trigger this type of reflection. Even just travel can do that. Just getting away from your day-to-day, the day-to-day problems can really help you to gain perspective without anything really bad happening. So yeah, that's been really big. And I've just been thinking, like, what do I want to do next? What's next for me? And as you know, I'm studying now, so that's going to really help me with my own vision on what's important for my life. And yeah, I'm just trying to get things done and then move forward on the things that are important to me, and definitely not play small to kind of accommodate some insecure person by my side. Absolutely not. And I think also another pattern I've had is self-abandonment, whereas I've been, almost totally abandoning my own projects just to make someone feel comfortable, because I do have a lot of nurturing energy in me, but I need to kind of focus that nurturing energy on myself first. So yeah, so this has been very, very, very confronting. I highly recommend in general keeping a diary. I do think it's a great thing to do when you are, it can help you make your life decisions. The only thing I regret about this is not making it more coded, because I think anyone could read it and they could find out a lot about myself. Whereas now, I actually, when I write, I do write in the 4 languages that I speak. So someone would have to speak 4 languages to actually understand what I'm saying, because I'm a bit paranoid about people finding my secrets on a page. But yes, so that's the book I'm reading now, and it's been so like, oh my God, it's definitely making me take action on what I want to do next. So yeah, which is very exciting. So yeah, my recommendation to you is, if you're into it, is to journal and to take time to think about how you want to spend your life, because life is a gift. Now it's time for this episode's meditation. Please don't listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. I celebrate the miracle of being alive. I trust life to surprise and delight me. Every breath reminds me that life is a precious gift. I choose to experience life fully, deeply, and joyfully. I am awake to the beauty that surrounds me. Every day offers new reasons to celebrate. I am grateful to be here now. I celebrate the miracle of being alive. I trust life to surprise and delight me. I allow myself to savor every moment. I choose presence over distraction. I find joy in the simplest moments. My heart is open to life's endless possibilities. I am grateful to be here now. I celebrate the miracle of being alive. I trust life to surprise and delight me. Life flows through every cell of my body. I radiate vitality joy, and positive energy. I welcome adventure into my life. I allow myself to laugh often and love deeply. I am grateful to be here now. I celebrate the miracle of being alive. I trust life to surprise and delight me. I deserve a life that feels vibrant and fulfilling. I choose experiences that nourish my soul. I celebrate my uniqueness and express it freely. My life is rich with meaning and possibility. I am grateful to be here now. I celebrate the miracle of being alive. I trust life to surprise and delight me. I appreciate the abundance that already exists in my life. I embrace change as an opportunity for expansion. I choose to live boldly and authentically. I trust myself to make the most of this beautiful life. I am grateful to be here now. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram. The Orgasmic Lifestyle is also on Substack and YouTube, where you can watch all the interviews with our experts. All the links are in the show notes below. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.